In honor of the Memorial Day holiday, Cage Nation TV would like to pay tribute to the servicemen and women who have given their lives in defense and service to this great nation. To the families of those lives lost, you have our sincere thanks and gratitude.
Let's go!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight Podcast. Coming to you from the Candid Cameron Studios in State College, Pennsylvania. Here's your host, Albert Cameron.
Thank you very much for joining us on this special Memorial Day weekend edition of the Prizefight Podcast. I'm your host, Albert Cameron. At the beginning of the show, we paid a small tribute to the servicemen and women who have lost their lives, and we could do an hour-long tribute. It would still never be enough to thank those troops for everything they've done, for giving their lives, for making the ultimate sacrifice for freedoms that we enjoy in this country every day. There are problems that we as the Americans do not have to deal with because our servicemen and women have fought so hard for a democracy that we should all hold near and dear to our hearts. So this weekend, Monday in particular, make sure you show a very special thanks to those lives who were lost, to the families who mourn those losses. You do have our sincere and deep thanks and gratitude. Coming up on the Prizefight Podcast, Zach Light files a wrongful termination suit against Bellator MMA and parent company Viacom. There's been a lot of talk recently about the Ali Act being ratified to cover mixed martial arts, and Gladiators at the Cage will be returning to the North Shore on June 4th. Joey the Hitman Holt does have a replacement in the main event. Jordan Rinaldi's out. We have an opponent coming in. We're going to be telling you all about that. But first, breaking news today, Darrell Horcher was involved in a motorcycle accident. In Pennsylvania, there is no helmet law. Police cannot pull you over if you're not wearing a helmet on your bike. Fortunately, Horcher was wearing a helmet. Horcher's manager believes that if Darrell Horcher had not been wearing a helmet, we'd be having a much different story. But fortunately, Horcher was wearing a helmet. He is expected to be sidelined for at least 6 to 8 months while he recovers. Horcher was just signed to the UFC as a lightweight. He's going to be out 6 to 8 months. The experience, allegedly, has turned him off to riding motorcycles completely. He intends on selling both of his bikes. From all of us here at Cage Nation TV, this one's going out to you, Darrell. We hope you have a very, very speedy recovery. Zach Light, former UFC talent, is filing a wrongful termination suit against Bellator MMA and parent company Viacom. Zach Light, in the motions that he filed against Bellator, come out with some pretty damning accusations. Among those allegations, he alleges that there were crooked medicals done. And a lot of our guys who listen to the Prizefight Podcast, our fighters, they know that medicals are pretty severe. Zach Light is saying, hey, as soon as Scott Coker came in, things started getting crooked. This isn't on the up and up. Apparently, doctors are even being cherry-picked because of their willingness to play along with these crooked medicals and these fraudulent medical examinations. Zach Light is even going so far as to saying that executives were hired to service Bellator while they were still managing fighters. Of course, you guys remember World Series of Fighting had to let go of one of their executives because there was talk that he's president of a company that's managing fighters, but he's matchmaking for WSOF. That is not okay. I mean, really not okay. That really blurs the lines between our fighters getting preferential treatment. Is the promotion doing things that are fair by fighters? Are they getting the best possible deal? There is so much gray area just in having that train of thought run through your head. You got Jim Smith, who is the VP of Talent Relations for Cage Nation Fighting Championship. Of course, that is all fictitious, but he's the VP of Talent Relations, but he's also managing Steve Charles. Now, Jim Smith being in a position where he's looking out for every fighter for the fictitious fighting championship, but he's also managing Steve Charles. Is that VP doing everything he can to be objective to his fighter? Is there a possibility that he may be cherry-picking fights for his fighter? Is he kind of screwing his fighter over for the benefit of himself as far as gainful employment, that promotion goes? That's where it gets too gray, too muddy, and I'm pretty sure it's even illegal. I know Nevada had a real big problem with it. Now, Zach Light was sent home after suffering a panic attack after Bellator 136, I think it might be. Light was sent home, and he was terminated shortly after. Now, these are some pretty big and bold claims, and one of the reasons I'm kind of leaning towards skepticism is Bellator has been within the Keystone State's boundaries several times. Anyone who has ever dealt with the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission knows you're being gone through with a fine-tooth comb. The executive director is very firm, but he's fair. If he thought that anyone was going to be faking medicals, well, they'd probably be escorted from the state and probably never licensed to fight again. Is this a case of a jilted employee trying to cash shade on their former employers? Let's be honest. Zach Light was unceremoniously fired. The timing was bad. Scott Coker's coming in, taking over for Bjorn Rebney. Scott Coker has his way of how he wants the organization to run. Was Zach Light part of that plan? Well, it happens in business all the time. Zach Light might not have been the best talent for the position Scott Coker needed to be filled, so he was let go. It also happens all the time that when employees are let go unceremoniously, they're angry. They want to get back in their employers in the worst way possible. And I mean, this is two sides of the same coin. Could Zach Light be throwing an epic hissy fit? Quite possibly. Could Bellator also be guilty of these accusations? Quite possibly. I'm not saying they are. I'm not taking a stance one way or another. But I'm saying is, it's entirely possible. We live in a nation where, according to our justice system, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Same thing with Zach Light. Same thing with Bellator. I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those things I'm going to be watching closely. If Bellator is found to be in the midst of wrongdoing, that puts the number 2 mixed martial arts promotion in the country at extreme jeopardy. If Bellator were to fold under the weight of such accusations and sanctions, that changes the complete United States mixed martial arts dichotomy. And that's what makes it interesting. Well, speaking of things that may or may not be fair to mixed martial artists, there's been a lot of talk about the Ali Act being ratified to cover mixed martial arts. Now, for a man who's being accused of cherry-picking doctors and faking medicals, Scott Coker is on board with the Ali Act being brought in to cover mixed martial arts. The Ali Act was put into place to protect boxers from exploitation and undue harm. At current, that Ali Act does not cover mixed martial arts. Now, what is the Ali Act? The Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, commonly referred to as the Ali Act, is a federal law that was introduced in 1999 and enacted on May 26, 2000 by the 106th Congress to 1. Protect the rights and welfares of boxers, 2. Aid state boxing commissions with the oversight of boxing, and 3. Increase sportsmanship and integrity within the boxing industry. I'm reading that off to you, and I pulled that from Wikipedia, and I think it's kind of funny that it was enacted on May 26, 2000, which would have been 16 years ago yesterday, and we're talking about it today. I'm just saying, folks, I'm a very big fan of numerology and synchronicity, and that just might be, so it weirds me out a little bit. Now, what kind of impact would that have on mixed martial arts? Well, it's kind of hard to tell because boxing and mixed martial arts are apples and oranges. There is a pageantry and presentation that is similar between both. Fighters are going out to fight. They're trying to negotiate the best deals for them. Are MMA fighters being exploited? Well, that's kind of hard to say. Every promotion I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with, the fighters are getting the most that the promotion can offer at the time. I've yet to run into a promoter who's like, hey, I'm going to stick it to this guy and I'm going to stick it to him good. I haven't come across that. I've seen a lot of promoters who are very conscious with their budgets, who are trying to make the best investment to the best show possible. And, if a fighter's not being coerced at competing for a payday that he can't agree with. That's just how it is. I don't think that MMA fighters are going through any undue harm. I know that the dehydration weight cuts is a big problem, but I don't think that's MMA exclusive. I think dehydration weight cuts are a problem all over all kinds of combat sports. I remember being involved with wrestling in high school and hearing about guys who were, sleeping in sweatsuits and knocking themselves out trying to cut that last pound, and they were doing irreparable harm to their bodies. But dehydration weight cutting, well, that's an issue for the state commissions. So, again, kind of interested to see, is the Ali Act going to be making it to mixed martial arts? Will it be good or bad? Well, we don't know, but we're going to be watching it closely. Now, you guys remember last week, Jordan Rinaldi got signed by the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and that left Joey the Hitman Holt without an opponent. This would have been the second time to happen to Joey the Hitman Holt for Gladiators of the Cage event. Of course, Joey the Hitman Holt was supposed to be taking on Justin Fast Eddie Edwards. That fell through. He's coming onto this card June 4th at Stage AE. Rinaldi gets cherry-picked by the UFC. Joey Holt might just have the worst luck in all of professional mixed martial arts, but I'm a the glass is half full kind of guy. I believe that the right opponent was be waiting to come to Joey the Hitman Holt. Mike Popezilla Pope will be competing at Gladiators of the Cage on June 4th at Stage AE, where he'll be taking on Joey the Hitman Holt. It will be a title fight. It will be the main event. It will be contested at lightweight. Mike Pope is a serious threat. Joey the Hitman Holt is a dangerous competitor. Let's not kid ourselves. But so is Mike Pope. And for this fight to come together, for all the parties to agree, for the commission to agree with this is the main event that I think we've been looking for. And this card may go down in Pittsburgh MMA history with the asterisk. We're going to call it the comeback event. Joey the Hitman Holt, through no fault fault of his own and through no fault of the promoter, had a hassle finding an opponent between Edwards being hospitalized, between the UFC taking Jordan Rinaldi. Joey the Hitman Holt finds an opponent. Ethan the Wolverine Gospel will be competing, who had an opponent. That opponent failed to appear. The Death Star Worthy had an opponent. That opponent failed to appear. Through no fault of the promoter. I cannot stress that enough. Through no fault of the promoter. In fact, Robert Joseph, Chief Executive Officer of Epic Leap Entertainment, grabs the mic before the last Gladiator of the Cage. He goes in, falls on the sword that he had no obligation to fall onto, because every fight card, every fight poster, you see this little clause that says fight promotion or card subject to change. There was no guarantee that when you bought your ticket, you were going to hope you were going to see Joey Holt, you were going to hope you were going to see Kama Worthy, you were going to hope you were going to see Ethan Goss, but there was no promise or guarantee of it up to bell time. Well, Robert Joseph was having none of that. In fact, he grabs the mic, he says, "Hey guys, I'm really sorry about this. If you bought a ticket to see any of these fighters for our next event, we're giving you a discount." For Robert Joseph to do that is not just a testament of good business, because I mean, that is good business. That is taking care of your repeat customers. That is solid integrity as a man. He felt he had an obligation to honor the good experience of the people who come to saw those fighters, and he was going to try to incubate those good feelings as best as he could. I've never seen a fight promoter offer discounts on tickets, and I gotta tell you, I applauded the man. I thought that was an excellent business tactic. I thought it was being a good person, being a good man. I have seen fight cards boil down to 3 MMA fights. Not 4, not 5, 3. 2 of those 3 fights were first round stoppages. The promoter, because the fight poster says card is subject to change, the fight promoter didn't have the means to really benefit like Robert Joseph did, but Robert Joseph did have the means, he had the opportunity, and that's why people keep coming back to Gladiators of the Cage, because they know they're being treated right. Next week on the Prizefight Podcast, we are going to have the complete breakdown of Gladiators of the Cage at Stage AE, June 4th. We're going to go through the fights. The whole Prizefight Podcast is going to be dedicated to the Gladiators of the Cage. Don't wait until next week. Go get your tickets, kids. Go get your tickets. I know fighters are selling them. Go grab your ticket. From what I have seen, just today alone, this fight card is going to be tremendous. You don't want to miss it. That's my time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on the Prizefight Podcast. Again, tune in next week where we're breaking down Gladiators of the Cage at Stage AE on June 4th. Until next time, fights, Cameron, action. Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prizefight Podcast. All rights reserved, 2015-2016 Planetary Sports. The Prizefight Podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.